Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Simon, and it's great being back with you as we continue in our series, Parenting with Purpose. I hope you've been enjoying this. We were talking about part one last time. Today we're in part two. Before we get into it, let me plug the book once again, The Unmasking Addiction. I hope some of you that have been reading it have enjoyed it. Faith-based principles is what the focus is in that addictions recovery book. By incorporating Christian counseling and biblical insights, the book resonates deeply with readers who value their faith and want to integrate it into their healing process. And as I've said before, what they're learning in treatment programs is that faith-based recovery seems to have a much better recovery rate than the secular recovery programs. They're good, and I'm not saying they're not good, but there does seem to be statistically showing a higher rate of sobriety over a longer period of time when you've been involved in a faith-based program. It provides spiritual comfort and guidance that you wouldn't normally have. And in the book, we're providing that as well. And that often is a significant motivator for those in recovery. So I hope you will get the book, read it, enjoy it, pass it along, because it's one of those books that you can pass along, friends, family, not only someone in recovery, but those who are wanting to help their close friends or family member to get well, and sometimes just to understand what's going on with them, what's happening there. Well, parenting with purpose. In part two, understanding child development, and we're going to get into a part three on this because I wanted to add a few more things involving digital parenting recommendations, and so we will do a part three. But part two, understanding child development, parenting insights into children's psychological, emotional, and physical development stages. I like to joke a little bit about it because parenting, sometimes you have to joke and laugh because it can be very stressful and yet very fulfilling. So the parent, what does the mom say? Why are you always on the phone? Have you said that before to your kids? They're always on the phone. So she says, why are you always on the phone? Don't you want to talk to me? It's kind of a reverse effect. The kids, you're on the phone as mom or dad, and what do the little kids do? That's when they want to talk to you. They're pulling at you and all that because you're paying attention to something else, not them. And then the minute you pay attention to them, they don't care. They're off going again. But the minute you get back on that phone, what are they doing? It's the curse of the generations, you might say. Now the parent is experiencing that, whereas once they did that to their parents. So why are you always on the phone? Don't you want to talk to me? The teen says, without looking up, I am talking to you. I'm just busy here. And the parent says, no, you're mumbling and texting. You're not talking to me. Teen takes a deep breath. Mom, I'm multitasking. I'm training my brain for adulthood where I'll ignore you professionally. And that's what happens, isn't it? They begin to ignore everybody else at work and everything else in their professions because they're so busy on the phone. As children grow through each stage of development, it brings new capabilities and challenges, shaping who they become as adults, and that is shaping. And we're going to talk in more detail about that next time on the effects of smartphones and all that on Generation Z, new research that's come out. By understanding these stages, caregivers, educators, and counselors can support children effectively, ensuring the mature and healthy, well-rounded individuals. That's the task of us parents, helping our kids to be mature, well-rounded, so they can start their adult life a little ahead of us. We want them to be better than we were or are. We would like them to have a better start perhaps than we started. And our parents did the same for us. It's just a normal thing that parents want to do. Loving parents, I have to add that, loving parents want to do is give their kids a little better start than they had. And unfortunately, that could be a problem as well. If we're working a little too hard at that, we're not letting them experience life enough. And the wiring in our brain requires experience in life for the normal wiring to stretch, to mature, to grow the way it's supposed to. If we interfere with that brain growth, the wiring growth, we're changing the wiring, and then that's going to create problems later on. We're going to talk more detail about that next time. So last time in part one, we mentioned that we're looking at psychological development, emotional development, and physical development. And we brought up the fact about psychological development in part one in children involves cognitive growth, social relationships, personality formation, all these things that are the distinct stages in influencing their life. And we talked about Erik Erikson's theory. We began discussing the first four stages of that psychosocial theory and how children can experience crisis in each stage as we were growing up. Each stage is essential for personality development. We spoke about some of that. When children face these crises in a supportive environment, they grow into adults capable of handling those challenges and maintaining relationships. Helping our kids to grow gives them a good start in life. Holding them back because we're being selfish, because we want them to have something perhaps that we think is important, however, we're causing them to miss out on the normal childhood that should occur. We're going to cause problems for them instead of helping them. And that's selfishness, isn't it? A form of narcissism. It's a self-centeredness, a entitlement that I know what's right and that's that. Doesn't matter what the research says, doesn't matter what history says, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. I want it this way and that's that. Well, see that happening so much, and you see the damage that it does to the kids as they get older, and especially in counseling, we see a lot of that damage occurring. Conversely, unresolved crises can lead to emotional struggles, and that's what happens. If the brain wiring isn't growing the way it's supposed to grow, there's going to be emotional struggles, and we're experiencing that in present day Generation Z. Train up that child, the Bible says. Train them up in the right way. And I'm sure you're sick of hearing that passage over and over again, but it's so important that it's repeated over and over again. The biblical notion here emphasizes the role of guidance and shaping, as we discussed last time. And I love this little picture. It's just so cute. Initial detachments to primary caregivers are crucial in shaping emotional stability. You want your child to smile back at you, don't you? It makes you feel good, but it's making them feel good. It's also helping their wiring to grow in the way it's supposed to grow. And if you've got a grumpy, grouchy child, it's usually because the parent is grumpy, grouchy. They're not smiling. The child wants to see you smiling. And if you're smiling, they feel safer. That brain pathways are growing in a natural way when they feel safer. And they're developing in natural ways. So we spoke about Erik Erikson last time. In the first few stages, we talked about trust and mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt in stage 2. We discussed initiative versus guilt in stage 3, and industry versus inferiority in stage 4. Today, we're getting into stage 5, which is identity versus role confusion. And this is around the ages of 12 to 18. Yeah, these are the tough ages, isn't it? This is the ages where they are building their own, who am I? And if we've influenced them in a proper way before age 12, then they're having a fair chance at developing their natural identity, that part of who are they really and what do they want to be. But if we improperly influence them before this time, they're going to get confused. And that confusion is going to bring about greater difficulties in these teen years of 12 to 18, causing role confusion. Oh man, we don't want that. So what happens when there's role confusion? We're going to speak about that more next time. Psychosocial task during this time period, teens explore their identity, values, and beliefs. Failure leads to role confusion. The biblical perspective on this is in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, and there's a lot of passages, but this is just one I picked out, declares the identity of Christ. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. Now, why did God say that? Why did he have to say that to the Hebrews? Well, when you were a kid, didn't you want your parents to say good things to you? Didn't you want them to make you feel special? That's part of development. That's part of putting within the thoughts of that child that I'm wanted, I'm appreciated, I have value. And so we want to pass that along. And God passed that along to the Hebrews, knowing that's what they needed to hear. And as a Christian, that's what I need to hear back from the Lord. So I read my Bible, I study and all that, and I get the impressions or read what the Word is saying on how God sees us, how much He loves us, and the sacrifices that He's made for us, such as dying on the cross, conquering death, being resurrected, preparing our home in heaven, coming back for us and leading us into eternity. Now, if you start to believe that, it makes you feel good, doesn't it? And it's not only words that are spoken, it's evidence and proof to back up the words. So it's all the prophecies that have all come true up to our day and time, well over 2,000 prophecies. Statistical odds are just enormous, and only just a few of them coming true, and yet they all came true. Makes us feel good, doesn't it? So can you imagine how you make your child feel good when you're not only telling them you're loving them, but you're giving them evidence that you love them by the way you treat them, by the attention you give them, by the support and encouragement that's always there for them. I can believe Mom and Dad because they demonstrate it to me that they love me. So I must have value with them. Well, that feels good, doesn't it? So the outcome is fidelity or loyalty during this stage of development, during these teen years of 12 to 18. Erickson highlighted adolescence as a time of self-discovery. This is also a time for parents where if there's been problems, whether they stay together or they're divorced, this is a time period where parents begin to question, did I do the right thing, or can I make up for this or for that? And unfortunately, the child has now developed loyalty or fidelity during this time period, and they may choose one parent over the other because they see the evidence backing up whatever they choose to see regarding that parent, and it can make them more loyal to one parent over the other, which then makes the other parent more, I got to work harder at this, I got to make them like me, make them love me, make them participate. It's the other parent's fault because they're not loyal to me, they're loyal to them. I got to do it's too late for that. And what is that going to do? It just pushes the child away even more. it's getting confirmed now. I'm doing the right thing by being loyal to this parent instead of that parent or whatever. But when the narcissism is there, the selfishness is there, they don't see that. All that parent sees is it's the other person's fault. I've got to work harder to make that child do it my way, be what I want them to be. It's for their own good. You're really believing it's for your own good, which to a selfish person it is to their own good, because they're going to gain more supply at that point if they're able to. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. Yet you think those parents would catch that, but it doesn't make sense to them because they have changed their mindset to where they believe the lie to be true, the truth to be a lie. And yet Erickson here in his stages is telling us that loyalty is formed early on, and it begins to show itself during this adolescent time period. So peer pressure becomes very important during this time period. The roles that they're in at school and with their peers, the groups that they belong to, these things become important in their minds, and it helps us associate them with success, with acceptance, with identity. And now they're starting to think about their careers. They're starting to think ahead. Now, I got very frustrated during this time period because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I remember, this friend wants to be a doctor. That friend wants to be a banker. That friend wants to drive a truck. That friend wants to do this. This friend wants to do that. I don't know what I want to do. Oh, what's wrong with me? I don't know what I want. I was very frustrated during that time period. And it wasn't until after that, in my early 20s, after I got married, that when I surrendered my ego, my life over to God, became a Christian, born again Christian, as the Bible would say, suddenly I knew what I wanted to do. It just came right in me. It was there. The seed was there. It just popped. It just blossomed at that moment, and I went in that particular direction that I'm in today. It can happen that way. And so sometimes there's confusion in adolescence because the direction just isn't quite there. And as parents, we want to be as patient as possible, but not force them into a direction we think they should go when they're not ready to go in that. Because what tends to happen if we're forcing them, at the time that seed sprouts later on, they may have already been sent into a direction that they didn't want to be, and now they've invested time and money in that direction, but the seed has sprouted to be something else. Whoa, what's going to happen there? In their mid-20s, 30s, and they recognize they're very unhappy in whatever they're doing because they were pushed into it, forced into it, coerced into it, and now they recognize they wanted to be something else. They are someone else. Creates even greater confusion, more problems. Sometimes they stay in that direction that they don't want to go in for a lifetime, and they're miserable for a lifetime. And sometimes it's fortunate that they're able to be strong enough to say no to this, go back to school or go back to training or whatever they need to do to become this that they were meant to be all along. And now they look back and they recognize, yeah, I was meant to be this, and they're able to make that transition, and they're happier for the rest of their life, hopefully, and it works out for them. But that's what happens when we try to push our teenagers into something that they're not ready for, or they're not convinced yet that that's what they're supposed to be doing. Later on, confusion comes as a result of it. Stage 6 is intimacy versus isolation, and this is the young adult ages of 18 to 40 years, where building deep relationships and avoiding isolation is central to this stage. And so you start to see, and I remember myself and my wife Linda at the time, we were thinking more on not only the marriage and preparation for having a family, but okay, let's connect. We need to connect with other couples. We need to participate in this. Let's see, what do others do to have happy marriages? Well, they go to church, or they belong to a group, or they participate in these activities, or they gather friends. So you begin thinking about reaching out more to be part of something as a whole. And that's normal. That's the wiring in our brains. We tend to go in that direction because we're made that way. And that's healthy. But if we don't go in that direction because of issues from the past, or whatever other reasons it might be, then isolation's going to occur. And where there's isolation, the wiring isn't normal. It's not going in the direction it's supposed to go. Inner problems are going to result as a result of it. So Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 to 10, and I'm not going to read the entire passage, but two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If I am with someone working together or in marriage, in relationship, there's a better camaraderie going on. There's more comparison going on. There's a recognition that people think differently, and it's okay to think differently. Oh, okay, so that's all right. I don't have to feel threatened because my wife may think one thought about something, I think a different thought. I might be one position in this area, she might be in another position in that area. It's okay. We can still be together because we're stronger together, we're better together, and we learn from the other, which helps us to even refine our positions in whatever it is. We're doing better, aren't we? Yeah, it's not, I hate you because you don't believe what I believe. I don't want to be around you because you disagree with me. No, we learn that early on in childhood when we're experiencing life, playing with our friends and all that. They have different opinions and all that. Oh, okay, but we're still friends and we still get along. We just know, well, they believe this way about that and I believe that way about that, and that's okay. But let me think more about what I'm thinking. Let me think more about what they're thinking. Now I'm learning more, I'm growing more, I'm smarter as a result. Two is better than one. And just because somebody has a difference of opinion doesn't mean you can't get along. Well, that's that intimacy versus isolation, because if you can't get along, there's going to be isolation. And if there's isolation, inner conflict is going to increase. But the positive side of that is love. The outcome of intimacy is love. Relationships rooted in commitment mirror God's covenant love. So two are better than one, you might say. And certainly there are loners out there. If you're a loner, it's okay to be independent and enjoy your alone time. But because God didn't make us that way, we do need that interaction with at least one other person. And I've known a lot of loners in over 30 years of counseling. Every one of them really needs at least one person that they can bond with, that they can trust in, that they can communicate to. Whereas extroverts, they need as many as they can get. And then you got all the other temperaments in between, and some need more, some need less. But we all need at least that one person, because God put love into us, and that love needs to be fed. It needs to thrive. We need to help it to thrive. Two are better than one. Stage 7, generosity versus stagnation. And this is that middle adult life of 40 to 65 years. And here's where I see a lot of adults and adult parents looking back and thinking, gosh, I did this wrong, or I did that wrong, or that was a mistake, I want to make up for it now. And so they're working hard at trying to make up for the mistakes or the problems of the past, that now perhaps they're in a better position to improve on things. Yet as a parent, perhaps there was a divorce, and perhaps the kids are now married and they're starting their own families, and that parent is trying to bring back the relationship and perhaps trying too hard, or perhaps not trying hard enough. And so there needs to be counseling and helping to figure out how to do this the right way. So during this psychosocial stage, adults seek to contribute to society through work, family, community. Stagnation arises from self-absorption, selfishness, basically. If you're a selfish person, you're self-absorbed. If you're self-absorbed, you're constantly thinking of self-preservation. If you're constantly thinking of self-preservation, you're going to be constantly in fear. You may not show that fear because you have to put on an image. You have to inflate your identity to what it's not on the inside. Therefore, everything becomes a threat to you, because anything may deflate that fantasy image that you're inflating. And so you become easily threatened. And as a parent trying to make up for things in the past, you've got to change. You can't just stay the same if you were self-absorbed in that time period of parenting. You can't remain self-absorbed trying to heal that in a relationship with your adult children at that point. So at that point, you need to change. You need to take away that self-absorption. You need to be more of a giver in that relationship, not only emotionally, but a giver in demonstrating that you've changed in that relationship with God. Because if you were a true Christian, and again, whatever faith you may be, if you were a true follower in that faith, you're giving more than taking. So as a Christian, giving more is loving more. You're demonstrating that through that new behavior of change. That's going to draw those adult children back into relationship. They're going to want to be with you at that point. When they see that demonstrated, they're going to feel safer around you at that point. But if they still see the selfishness, the narcissism, the self-absorption, let's just avoid. And that's not what you want if you're trying to fix those things. If you're in this stage of development, you're going to become stagnated as a result. Psalm 71 verse 18 talks about, even when I'm old and gray, don't forsake me, my God, till I declare your power to the next generation. Till I change and help the next generation to get to know God, to get to know Jesus, Father God, the Holy Spirit, to get to know faith in a healthy way that will help them to grow. And if I can do that in my walk, in my daily walk, just the way I live, I don't have to say a word. If I just live it out, they see it. And so if I want to rebond with my kids as adults who are adults now, but there's been separation, there's been divorce, there's been issues, demonstrate those positive changes in a way that's going to attract them, want to be attracted to you, not repel from you. So what's the outcome of that during that time period? Well, care. Generativity, it's called, reflects a calling to serve others. It's creating, whether through biological reproduction, such as parenting, fostering relationships, mentoring, or contributing to social, cultural, or professional domains, it reflects the desire to leave a meaningful legacy. I want to fix my mistakes. I want to leave a legacy that is positive. that's going to be appreciated, that if I were to look back, I could say something good came out of that, something productive, something helpful. And it may be big, it may be little, but whatever it is, it's going to make you feel better because you're leaving a legacy. And it's going to make your family feel better as well. Stage 8, integrity versus despair. That's where I'm at now, that time period, 65 years or older, looking back on everything, and saying, okay, how could I have done that better? Or what changes can I make now to make things better? Or how can I fine-tune myself even more? Or how can I keep growing? Because life, as a Christian especially, is a lifetime of growth, continual growing. You don't just stop because you're retired, because you're 65 or older. You keep growing. Because if you're growing, you're thriving, because that's how God designed our bodies to be. The minute you stop, you start to decay. Now, our body's naturally decaying, but it speeds up that process if you're just stopping and not doing anything. I recall growing up in Daytona Beach with all the retirees coming down over the many years, seeing those who come down and just do nothing. They get sick within just a few years, and before you know it, they're the first ones to pass away. But those that come down after their retirement and they start getting involved in other activities, perhaps they volunteer more in their churches, or perhaps they take on another job. They have purpose, they have reason, they're continuing to grow. I see those individuals, or I've seen those individuals growing up in a retirement state, they're thriving. They're actually getting better. They're doing more, they're living longer as a result of it. And when there is sickness, they get through the sickness even better. Reflecting on life with a sense of fulfillment leads to integrity, while regret results in despair. If we don't do it right in the early stages of our development as parents and even as children, if we don't do it right in those early stages, there's going to be despair. There's going to be regrets. Make up for those regrets. If you have regrets, okay, how can I make up for it? What can I do to either correct that, or if it can't be corrected, how to make my present and future time that's remaining on this earth even better, so I can feel better that I've made corrections to improve myself. You can do that. Anybody can do that. Even somebody who's selfish can do that, because they can learn to be unselfish. Just like Paul in the Bible. He learned to be unselfish. He learned to let go and let God. He learned to trust in God, and he learned to recognize he was wrong the whole time before. 2 Timothy 4:7 encapsulates integrity by saying, I've fought the good fight, I've finished the race, I've kept the faith. Well, that is integrity, isn't it? I've kept the faith. Keep your faith. Now, we're not just talking religion here, we're talking life. Stay loyal, stay trusting with wisdom. Set your boundaries, your healthy boundaries. Give when you can give. Take less, because you need less. If you think about it, when God says he's meeting all of our needs, or he will meet all of our needs, just think this earth is covered. The covering of the earth, the land, the trees, the flowers, whatever, the crops, the covering of the earth supplies all of our needs. If we got nothing else, everything we need is on the covering of the earth. He has supplied all of our needs. It's all right there. Whatever we need is there. It's been given to us. Do we need more than that? Not really, but yeah, it'd be nice to have more. But we have all of our needs met already. Be that person in giving more to your adult children at this stage of life, doing more that you can, and to friends and other family members as well. And what's the outcome of that? Wisdom. Acceptance of life's journey is a hallmark of emotional maturity. Yeah, wisdom. I learned, I gained knowledge, I gained understanding based on the knowledge, which gave me insight, which is wisdom. And if I have wisdom, I'm a whole lot smarter than I was before. I'm gaining that insight, which is why some societies lift up their older folks, honor their older folks, more respectful of the older folks, recognizing the wisdom is there because of their insights, understanding, and knowledge that they've experienced through life. Then you have other cultures that don't do that. But the ones that do seem to prosper more. They seem to do better. Well, next time in part 3, we're going to follow this up in cognitive development and screen media. Yeah, screen media. We're going to talk about parenting and give some additional digital parenting recommendations in the emotional development of our kids. So I hope you'll enjoy that. Give us a like and a subscribe. It helps keep me motivated. May your troubles be minor, blessings more, and happiness come through your door. We'll see you next time. Bye.